Hi, and welcome to Screen for Schools with us, Screen Lines Wales, sponsored by Channel 4. Today we're learning about special effects, what they do, and what it takes to work in this industry. So today we're at RealSFX to find out more.
Reese, how are you?
Not too bad, yes, good.
Nice to see you.
Yes, yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us here today.
No problem.
So could you tell me a bit more about what you do at RealSFX?
Okay, so RealSFX is a practical special effects company. So what that means is we get to blow up stuff for a living, all right? So special effects is different to visual effects. Special effects is something that we create big explosions for sets, fires, we flick cars, real cars. We do elemental effects like snow, wind and rain. And so basically we create the fun stuff on set. And we call this our sort of James Bond testing grounds. You know, this is where we bring the ideas that come from the production team and we come and we test here. So this is it, this is our headquarters.
And sort of you've worked on some big productions, TV and film, yeah?
Yeah, my personal career has been about 30 odd years, so I'm a bit of an old guy, but yeah, no, I started off working on many TV productions back in the day, but films that people know such as Star Wars and recently obviously Doctor Who, Peaky Blinders, and so yeah, I've had a long career and then now that's obviously developed into RealSFX here.
And throughout this session, we'll be learning more about sort of different skills and all the different things that go on here. But really, kind of like, how many people do you have working for you?
So we have a full-time crew here between sort of 8 people, and then we have a pool of, say, 70 odd people. Freelancers go off to work on set, on films and TV shows. We have a variety of different skill bases here. So we have people that work in the office to work out coordination. We have people that work in our prosthetic studios, model making, and then we have our sort of metal workers. And of course, we have our set crew. So we have quite a balance of skills here. So
during our visit here today, you watching will have an opportunity to be able to learn to make use of the kit that we have sent through to you. This kit will help you to be able to film a stunt, like something that the team here will do when on TV and film programs, but in a way that you'll be able to replicate, and very importantly, in a safe way.
Safe.
Yes, the safe way in your own time. Okay, Danny, so when it comes to filming a stunt, what do you have to think about in terms of setting the scene for like when you're filming it?
Okay, so it all starts from the script. So the script will come to us from the production team and it will give a description of that scene. So say, for instance, a vehicle's traveling down the road. What is that road? Is it wet? Is it raining? Is it windy? Are they in a storm? Those are the elemental kind of things that we look for. So what we would do is we'd go through it, mark it all up with my team here, and then we would then discuss how that's done. And then obviously when it comes to a stunt, we would then talk in much detail about how the vehicle is going to crash into another car. Is it going to veer off into the bushes? And then how would we crash a car? You know, do we flip the car? Do the stunt people crash it themselves? Do we need to put some protection in those vehicles? The environment as well, you know, who do we need to speak to on a logistical kind of sense? Speak to locations, how are we going to crash a car into the road? So all those things need to be considered when we're tackling an effect like this.
And often that work of setting a scene makes the viewer kind of knows, obviously can see the road is wet and might be dangerous.
Of course,
and so
yeah, I mean it heightens the drama, doesn't it? So rather than just a car travelling down a road in daytime, you can set it at night, the road can be wet, it could be in a storm. So these are all the things to consider when particularly even writing a scene or then trying to create that scene.
So Danny, you're going to demonstrate some of the kit that you've got here, like the wind and rain. Why do you need these things? Because obviously we get plenty of wind and rain in Wales when it comes to,
Yes, but it's never the right wind and rain, is it? So it's important for us to have the kit. So what we've got for you is a little demonstration of the elements that we would provide if we're creating the storm. So remember we talked about setting the mood, creating that kind of world. So what we have here is we have a rain bar, a wind machine and a smoke machine. And what we'll do is bring them on individually and then we'll obviously see what it looks like all together. So we'll pump on then, please. So what we do now is we turn the pump on now, which activates pumping the water around to our rain bar there. Okay, water on. and wind on, and smoke up. So what we can see here is we got the whole of all of the elements themselves running together. So we've got the rain running, that creates a lovely sheet of water. The camera would shoot through it. The wind itself will then push it. You see you can see the movement of the rain, and then the smoke just sort of heightens. You can see it more, so it just looks like a storm.
And you can kind of control sort of the levels and if it's going to be heavier or lighter.
Exactly that. So we can introduce more rain, more wind, and obviously more smoke. But it's getting that balance is probably the real skill. Now, a lot of people say, what's the most hardest effect to achieve? It's not always about the big explosions. It's about creating those levels of elements that look the same in every single shot. So it's actually very difficult to get those elements right.
Apart from just like the general setup, what are the things you have to think about when you're using this equipment?
So obviously these are big bits of kit. We've got water on set. You know, it is very dangerous. You know, it's noisy. We're creating what is a hazard, so to speak. You know, we've got a high propulsion pellet there as well, something really, really dangerous. But combining those elements together to create those storms is what we're trying to achieve, but also achieve it safely. So consideration around me would obviously be the cast. A lot of the time we have big actors in the wind and rain, hating me, of course. But then around it, you'll have the crew. But we could be doing that in a public place. So again, it's all those sort of key elements that we have to consider. But obviously safety in mind.
Yeah, and also obviously thinking sustainability now, you have to think about the clear up as well. Sort of.
Yeah, clear up. No,
Yeah.
joking. No, so clear up is something that we get a lot of the locations team actually hate special effects because we create mess. So you've got to imagine sometimes we're creating a storm or snow or whatever, and of course it makes a mess. But sustainability obviously very, very close to our agenda. So whatever we use material-wise when it comes to snow, because snow is actually made of paper, believe it or not. We'll show you what that looks like later. But clearing that up, use of water as well, that's also a consideration. We have to think about the wastage of water, making sure that we can maximise all of that. So again, we always have the environment close to our hearts.
And obviously you've got all this professional equipment, but we're talking about sort of the things that, ideas for how these people watching will be able to replicate these things.
Yeah.
So I suppose looking at a model on models and things they can do in terms of...
I mean, look, I've got all this expensive equipment, but let's think, I mean, I started making little videos with little plasticine characters and stuff like that, and we use little watering cans to create the rain, or bits of hair dryers to create the wind, but don't do that with the water though, by the way. So again, it's just little ways of creating like this kind of like, this is like major, but you can achieve that on a much smaller scale.
So Danny, when it comes to sort of like special effects in general, but also with this car crash, you know, what's the bit that really grabs people's attentions?
Well, of course, blowing stuff up, right? So one of my favourite is to blow up stuff. So here we are, we've got some examples of the different types of explosions that we like to use. Now, obviously working on Doctor Who, we have a variety of different pyrotechnics, and really the first thing to consider is obviously safety. Whenever we're trying to achieve these big effects, it's always talking about the environment that you're working in, the people around you, making sure everyone knows what's going to happen. It's not a surprise. Imagine being on set and we blow something up and no one knows about it. So it's important for everyone to know what's going to happen. We've gone through all of the health and safety kind of stuff. I've done all the paperwork, and that's even before we've got to press any buttons. But we've kind of done all that already, and now we're going to try and blow something up, all right? So this is my firing system. It's a remote system. You'll probably see me or my team on set. Very powerful bit of kit. Just means that we could be somewhere in the set. Most of the time I'm hiding between people's legs or sort of around the camera or something like that. And essentially what we got here is the control system here. We've got 3 different types of pyros. We've got 3 different types of light. So I'm going to arm the system. So I want you to imagine that we are in set of Doctor Who and there's some sort of spark effect going on. Well, let's have a look. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So small effect, you know, not exactly the most exciting, but again, if you imagine maybe the Sonic is exploding or there's some sort of micro spark going off around somebody, so that's what that would be. So let's go up a little bit, okay? So what we've got now, imagine like a computer is exploding or something's overpowering. All right, ready for that? Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. We would have seen that a lot in a lot of films and TV shows, right? That type of effect. But one of my faves now, should we go a little bit bigger?
I think so.
Why don't we? Yeah, I think we're gonna upset the neighbors. This is more kind of like, we call it a grenade simulator. So you can imagine what it's gonna be like. Okay, you ready? All right, ready then. I'm firing in 3, 2, 1. That's more like it, isn't it?
That's the sort of thing. That's the sort of thing. Yeah.
We do love doing those on set. So, so yeah, again, you can see that the projection of smoke there, sparks and stuff. I don't think the seagulls really liked it. But again, you're using a variety of different materials there in order to achieve that. You know, black powder, a bit of titanium. We're using, everything's all fired remotely, so there's a lot of science that's involved in creating these type of effects.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously when you've got these explosions, you'll often have sort of, there might be a fire that will carry on afterwards. So you've got some other kit then you can show us about, so a little demonstrate
of course.
That, yeah.
Obviously, on a progressive level, things explode and catch fire. So we don't just douse everything in petrol and set it on fire. There's a controlled way of doing it. So let me show you how we do it.
Brilliant.
So here we have a low-line smoke effect. We do a lot of things with smoke, so create an atmosphere, or we could be doing big exterior smoke effects or interior low-lying effect. You'll probably see this a lot on many shows, including things like X Factor and you know, obviously Doctor Who. But this is a low-lying fog effect, which basically uses a chiller. Can you feel it on your feet? A little bit chilly.
Yeah.
And it basically cools the smoke down. So, and you'll notice it's tailing off quite quickly. What that means is quick dispersing, but we want it consistently running so it creates the best effect. So that smoke comes in many different ways, different types of machines. Some are for outside, some for inside, but lots of different machines. Now all of my racking here is all smoke machines, so there's quite a variation that we have here at RealSFX. But it's not always about the smoke. We obviously got other elements as well, such as fire. Now remember we talked earlier about the explosions and sometimes that progresses into fire. Well, I'm going to show you a very quick setup here. This is a gas, practical gas setup. This is called a fishtail for obvious reasons. And essentially what we do here, we can control the flame height by using gas. Now, what it means is that I can go up on the flame and I can go down on the flame. I always feel really powerful when I do that. But essentially what this is a burner, and we can control these type of flame effects. So you'd find these fishtails in maybe building windows to make them look like the windows are on fire, or even say, like when we talk about the car crash, we can have these sort of fishtails in the cars. Whenever we do a fire in a car, we strip, believe it or not, we strip all the flammable material out of the vehicle, such as the fuel tank and all the rubber seals and stuff, and we put these little flame systems inside the car, and then we can control the flame height when we're on set. Super important to control the flame height of the car, because obviously we're going to put people near it, and we have to be sure that when we put actors next to them, that they're going to be completely safe. So by doing that, we can set the height and preset those levels.
How do you actually go about getting a car to crash?
Well, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think if you just look over your shoulder there, we've got a variety of different sort of videos where we've sort of used the principle of flicking cars into the air, which is completely unnatural, but kind of using mechanical systems, engineering, transferal of energy from one thing to another. Something that I really enjoy. So again, using a lot of science to work with pressures and cylinders and and basically every action has a reaction. So essentially what we're doing is mocking this up. Now I know that the guys and girls have got these sort of packs, haven't
Yes,
they?
yeah, they're part of the kit that you will be able to have access to, yeah.
You probably opened up your box and thought, what on earth is all of that stuff? And so basically what we're mocking up here is exactly what this is, where we're using a high pressure cylinder flipper rig, we call it, in order to flick a car. So we've obviously put something together already. Now you have component parts to put it, but it should look something like this. Now I'll put it together in its final phases so that you can all understand about the pressures and things like that. But essentially what we're creating here, these are going to be our pistons. These are the things that inflate or push really quickly to fling the car. So essentially you want to start off with your stroke sort of back there, and then we're going to use this as the pressure vessel, all right? So we basically, that's creating your pressure, and then we're going to put it inside the tube there. Now what's important is that you get the piston, which is the main push piston, and that's going to push on the block of wood that's there, all right? So we've got to make sure that's loaded like that. Now, bearing in mind, there's a lot of pressure in the reality. So again, this is the safety bit. You know, we pressurize everything and then we put the car on top. Now, admittedly, it's not to scale, but essentially it gives you an idea. But if I very quickly, and this is where the fun bit comes into the school, make sure you don't hit anyone in the classroom. But essentially what we do is we flick the car like that. You see? So what we're trying to do is push really quickly the transfer of energy that travels down the high pressure hose, flicks the piston, and then does the flipper and flicks the car. So again, pretty cool, right?
Yes, yeah, and sort of essentially quite a simple thing. I suppose that sort of that just using that movement of air. So it's air sort of
exactly
so
that. And the real skill is knowing how much to put in. So as you'll notice, these cars are flinging about, and we use those containers there to sort of as a reference to the set that it was meant to fly into and stuff like that. So again, that's where you only get one chance to do these things. They're very expensive to put vehicles on here, so you've got to get it right. And a lot of the time we'll be doing the flips with explosions as well.
So the images on the screen there, the ones that you did as like the tests.
They're the test vehicles,
that we did before you actually went on set.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would be testing that for a few days. And then we would have to take what we take from that and put it on set, and then put the expensive vehicles on there, and then fling them into sets. And then sometimes we've got, that was actually for a film called Expendables 4 with Jason Statham and Sylvester Stallone. So it was important to make sure they land on the right place. So again, you know, really cool effect to do. Very sciencey, but also a lot of fun.
And the other thing as well, sort of with that, and we talked about setting the scene earlier, but sort of, so when you were filming there, when you're just testing it, it was kind of out in the open. What things did you use to kind of try and mask, obviously, the rig? Because obviously people can't see the rig and stuff.
Well, that's a really good question. A lot of the time, we just use explosives. I know it sounds crazy. We put it in the floor, and we use the fireball in order to mask the rig. And then when the fireball happens, this flips and then the car flips over. So really, you don't necessarily see it in all the melee of chaos and smoke and dust, but it's just a lot of the time you'll probably see other shows where they put cannons in cars and flip it that way. This is just a very resettable, quick way of throwing cars into the air multiple times in one day. So lots of fun.
Okay, so we talked about setting the scene, we talked about sort of the smoke and the fire and the explosion, the actual flip in the car, but there's so many other elements that add to the kind of like the adds to the whole ambience of filming something, you know?
So I've got a variety of different material here which might appeal to some people who are super creative, not necessarily into science, maybe not into the mechanics of things, but maybe into the creative side of what we do. So I thought I'd just show you some of the examples that we use. Now, obviously we make a lot of soft props. So again, this is all lightweight. I mean, it's just, you know, we could hit you with it, not too hard, obviously, but it's all soft and made of like a composite, which can obviously be used on set, so no actors are going to get knocked out. But in addition to that, hammers, like all soft, bricks as well, lightweight versions. You'll see people chucking these as part of riot scenes and stuff like that.
I remember you said with the bricks as well, though. The tricky thing is to make sure they don't bounce.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so sometimes we'll put like a render on it, which is like a piece, just so it kind of sort of when it hits the floor, it doesn't actually sort of bounce like a football, So yeah, well spicy. And then other things as well. I mean, prosthetics. This is something. Sorry, kids, if you don't like sort of guts and goo, but basically, yeah. So prosthetics, again, like always, if I get a chance to show a severed head, there we go. Sorry, teachers. But essentially, yeah. So again, prosthetics, makeup as well, real major part of what special effects is. So again, something like this would take, weeks to make, and it takes painstaking. You see all the detail of the veins in there, very similar to my hands, So yeah, lots of detailed work there, but also very scary. A lot of the time we use a lot of guns. Again, whenever you see guys shooting, they drop the guns always with rubber, or they chuck it at people as well. But let me talk about some of the materials that we use on set. Now, you would have seen the firing systems earlier on when I used my big explosions, but when we use those explosions, we use materials like cork. Now you think, well, why would I use cork? But cork is the big chunks of bits that you see fly up in the air when there's big explosions where people are getting blown up as part of an action sequence, or might be part of a building that's coming in and stuff like that. So we break it all up and we mix it with other bits like compost and mud, but making sure that we don't have stones, because obviously if you have stones in the explosions can be really problematic as well. So again, there's a real process. We put everything in these cylinders, we put the explosive charges in the cylinders, and they fire out the debris and stuff all around people. It's really super cool, and I absolutely love it. But one of the things, and you'll notice that some of you have probably got some of this like wobbly glass now, in your packs. Now, this is what we call silicon glass, not to be mistaken by shatter glass. Now, silicon glass itself is it's like a rubber, and we break it up, so you're more than welcome to break it up in class, and it makes it even smaller. You see how it made it all just smaller?
It glistens just
like it. Yeah, and so a lot of the time, you'll see this on the floor, and sometimes when the actors are crawling through the floor, this is what they're actually crawling through, and a lot of the time we'll put this in our cannons, we'll fire it at them and stuff. So again, we never use the real glass to do that type of thing, but everyone loves breaking that up, so feel free to crack on with that. But that leads me then to the sugar glass. Now, we don't actually make it sugar, it's just what they call it. It's like a resin, and basically this is what it breaks like this. So we make panels, sometimes like this big, and sometimes people smash it through. And then we can obviously mould it into bottles like this that can be broken over people's head. So again, there's a real process. You'll notice in special effects it's not always real. We try and make things look real, but really they're not. Something like this as well, again, the process, going back into, again, the creative side of what we do. This is a Cybermen head. You'll all recognise it. This has actually been blown up in the show. Made of foam, okay? So there wasn't a person in it on this occasion. We actually made him out of foam and blew him up. And again, talking about the principles of explosions, we don't just throw a load of charges into a suit and blow it up. We have to make it out of foam. And what that means is when it explodes, it fragments into soft material.
Yeah.
So it's like, so you see how lightweight that is? Yeah, super, super light. So these are all the principles that we work towards to make sure that we kind of make things safe. So just going into some of the elements as well, we have like ash as well, made of paper. And I probably mentioned earlier on that all snow is paper. Well, most of the time, but essentially this is how the snow starts. Looks quite boring, right? Made of paper. But we put them into into a machine, a Crendel. And what that does, it churns it all up like a massive, imagine a big Hoover in reverse. It churns it all up inside and it fires it out the big long hose with water, and it works like paper mache. So it's obviously big bags of that and it goes everywhere. So we don't like clearing up, but we obviously do.
But then that means that obviously next time people at home are watching something as a Christmas special,
Yeah.
it might have been filmed.
Might totally be just all snow and all paper and it's not real. Now, some of you are gonna love this. Slime. Of course, I get to play with slime. Ugh, okay. All right, really sticky, horrible stuff. Lots of kids are into slime at the moment, aren't they? So bogey fingers if they want to. Also crude oil. A lot of time we have to do, oh, I can't even, I've got slime on my hands. There we go. Yeah, so it looks like oil. So sometimes we have to make it look like spilt oil. And look, I'm really sorry, and I know your teacher's gonna hate me for this, but we've even got poo, all right? Yes, and it doesn't smell like poo, it's all good, but it does look like it. So, yeah, so sometimes needs must, and we have to get that out as well. But it's, yeah, so a variety of different materials. And of course, I mentioned earlier about when we do bullet hits and stuff, we put a mixture of like balsa wood and dust and stuff like that. The explosive, my finger's sticking to everything, look, sticking. And we put the pyrotechnic charge in there, dust, and then we can angle those things. So when we fire the bullets off, we can angle, and it means that we can put someone close to it and the explosive force is firing away from them. Then we've got a smaller version there. But what is the hardest effect to achieve? I spoke to you about what is the most dangerous. Well, for me, has to be using these bad boys. You're probably thinking, what on earth are these? Now, these are what we call glass breakers. Now, there are times when we do need to break real glass. That's because we can't make the panels as big as we like to. So it's massive panels, and we've seen people in films where people get thrown through glass and stuff like that. Well, unfortunately, it's real glass, and what we have to do is we have to put these bad boys on the framework. We put the explosive charge inside here, and that contains the explosive force in. That goes in there, and it shoots a little pin in that. Once it's fired off by using one of these, it fires the pin into the glass and breaks the glass. Now, very dangerous. You have to get it absolutely spot on, because if you fire it too early, the person going through the glass will cut themselves. And if you fire it too late, the person will probably get knocked out. Yeah. So you have to get it absolutely perfect. So imagine someone's running towards the glass and you've got to hit the glass or break the glass the moment their nose touches it. Do you think you guys could do that? All right, you got one go at it, and if you get it like a fraction too early or a fraction too late, they're in hospital either way. So it's one of the most difficult things, and it's the one thing that everyone goes, oh, we've got to break some glass, someone's got to run through it, and I go, oh. Okay. So it's one of the most difficult, but one of the most challenging. And also we use these for whenever we see guys shooting up cars and popping side windows and stuff like that. So kind of gives you a broad stroke of all the different materials. So sometimes very creative, also trying to sort of trick you in thinking things are real. But ultimately, whenever we do explosions, they're completely safe because we're using materials to make it safe.
Yeah, so that's a kind of fundamental. There's no point doing anything unless you can replicate it and do it again, and sort of.
Yeah, of course. There are times we can reset and redo it, but a lot of the time we can't. Yeah. So obviously we do a lot of our practicing and and testing here before we take it. But yeah, well, productions don't really like us to take 2 or 3 times to do things. So we try to get it first time, but obviously it's super difficult.
And so it's just covering a range of different things in terms of obviously people who are maybe very practical, but also, like you said, as you said, the craft, the sort of the more sort of design and sort of aspects all covered, and sort of a range of things required.
I mean, it's a lot of fun, you know, like making these things at home to sort of trick people is something that I used to do. And also, you don't necessarily, if you were doing little videos at home, necessarily need to use explosives for firing debris and stuff into the air. You can use air, and a lot of people make little air pops to look like bullet hits and stuff. So if you're trying to shoot a movie at home, there's little methods, little systems you can make to do that. And I don't need to tell, I'm pretty sure that most of the audience and kids in their classes know how to make slime. So there's a lot of fun stuff here that can definitely be at home.
Excellent. So there's a whole range of different things there. So, as Danny said, there'll be elements of those glass-like material that you'll find in your packs. So when you're putting your sort of videos together, you will find that there are those aspects you can put in, and think about it as part of, you know, what other aspects will help add that little bit of reality when it comes to actually filming your film.
It all starts with a question. Just imagine what you could become.